The Life of Napoleon by William Hazlitt. Performed by Robert Bethune. A note to the listener. William Hazlitt numbers his chapters continuously throughout the work. Therefore, the previous volume ended with chapter 21, and this volume, volume 3, begins with chapter 22. Chapter 22. The 18th of Brumaire. On the 9th of October, 1799, the 16th of Vendémiaire of the year 7, the frigates La Muiron and La Carrère, and the xebecs La Revanche and La Fortune, with which Napoleon had sailed from Rosetta, cast anchor at break of day in the Gulf of Frejus. No sooner were the French frigates descried than it was conjectured they came from Egypt. The people ran in crowds to the shore, eager for news from the army. It was soon understood that Napoleon was on board, and such was the enthusiasm among the people that even the wounded soldiers got out of the hospitals in spite of the guards, and went to the shore. The spectators wept for joy. In a moment the sea was covered with boats. The officers belonging to the fortifications and the customs, the crews of the ships that were anchored in the road, in short, everybody thronged round the frigates. General Péraimont, who commanded on the coast, was the first to go on board. Thus they were allowed to enter without waiting for the officers of quarantine, for the communication with the ships had been general. Italy had just been lost. War was about to be recommenced on the Var, from whence Napoleon had driven it 3 years before, and Frejus dreaded an invasion as soon as hostilities should begin. The necessity of having a leader at the head of affairs was too urgent, and the public mind was too much agitated by the sudden appearance of Napoleon at this juncture for ordinary considerations to have any weight. The quarantine officers declared that there was no occasion for subjecting these vessels to it, and grounded their report on the circumstances that they had touched at Ajaccio. This argument rather proved that Corsica ought to have been put under the same regulations. It is true that during 50 days which had elapsed since the vessels left Egypt, there had been no appearance of sickness, and indeed the plague had ceased 3 days before their departure. At 6 o'clock that evening, Napoleon, accompanied by Berthier, set off for Paris. The fatigue of the passage and the effect of the transition from a dry to a moist climate compelled Napoleon to stop some hours at Aix. The inhabitants of the city and of the neighbouring villages came in crowds to offer their congratulations at seeing him again. Those who lived too far from the road to present themselves there in time rang the bells and hoisted flags upon the steeples, which at night blazed with illuminations. It was not like the return of a citizen to his country, or of a general at the head of a victorious army, but seemed to imply something more than this. The enthusiasm of Avignon, Montélimar, Valence, and Vienne was only surpassed by that of Lyons. That city, in which Napoleon rested for 12 hours, was in a state of general delirium. The Lyonnese had always testified a strong attachment to him, perhaps from feeling a peculiar interest, on account of their situation, in all that related to Italy. They had also just received the accounts of the battle of Aboukir, which formed a striking contrast to the defeat of the French armies of Germany and Italy. "We are numerous, we are brave," the people seemed everywhere to say, "and yet we are conquered. We want a leader to direct us. We now behold him, and our glory will once more shine forth." In the meantime, the news of Napoleon's return had reached Paris. It was announced at the theatres, and caused a universal sensation, of which even the Directory partook. Some of the Société du Manège trembled on the occasion, but they dissembled their real feelings so as to seem to share the common sentiment. Baudin, the deputy from the Ardennes, who had been much grieved at the disastrous turn the affairs of the Republic had taken, died of joy when he heard of Napoleon's return. Napoleon had already quitted Lyons before his landing was announced in
Sample complete. Ready to continue?